Good evening. I'd like to call the July 13th meeting of the Winchester Board of Education to order. It is 6:10 p.m. and can we begin with the roll call, please? Let's start with Jeanette.
Jeanette Broder.
Nora Mokarski.
Cheryl McGlynn.
Melanie Brady Family.
Renee Waldron.
Tori Lavetri.
Laura.
Might be easier to just go alphabetical.
Right, if we can do it. And Doug.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Can you? Okay, Nora Mokarski.
And Doug Fenninger and Sandra, you're there as well?
Yes, Saunders on phone.
Okay, great. Good. Agenda review. I am going to make a motion that we add an executive session to this evening's meeting, and that is at the request of Tara, who would like to have the interview conducted in executive session, which is certainly within her right. So I make that motion. Is there a second to that? That's from Chris. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against or abstentions? So it looks like we have a unanimous vote to add executive session to our meeting tonight. And since we do have a couple non-members here at the moment, I'm going to ask if there's any public comment. Is there anybody from the public who'd like to comment? And lastly, is there anybody who'd like to comment? All right. So tonight we have two main items on the agenda, and the first one, I apologize that we did not do this the correct way to begin with. We could have avoided all this, but I think there was an enormous amount of enthusiasm to have Tara rejoin the board, so we sort of skipped a couple steps, which we indeed should not have. So reading the bylaws of the Board of Education, it does in fact stipulate that we hold a meeting and interview the candidate. Tara has submitted a letter of interest, which I forwarded to all of you. And I also have to add, again, as an apology, that although there are many of us who know Tara and we're anxious to have her back, many of you do not. So I think it's only fair that you have an opportunity to ask her some questions and get to know her a little bit more before we make the final appointment of Tara to the Board of Ed. So Tara, if you'll just bear with us for a moment, we're going to discuss, as if you're not here, questions that we may want to pose to you, or maybe you just want to tune out for a little while so it's a little easier for us to talk about it. But are there questions that anybody who does not know Tara, who's not served with her, would like to know about her and her, either from her prior service or what she hopes to do in her future term?
First of all, Doug, if I may, I would like to just take a quick look all together at the process for filling a vacancy on our bylaws, because I was the first one that I seconded Tara's nomination originally. I think she's a fine choice. I have no problem with it. My problem is with this is our third shot at it now. You know, this is number.
As I said, the fault lies with me, Tori.
Right. I agree. Yeah, and it's fine. And fault lies with all of us, actually. Every single one of us should have known that we were doing it wrong. It's not anyone, in particular's fault, I don't think. But and maybe this is something we can address, but this is a very long list of stuff that we need to do on here for filling a vacancy. It's a long list. I don't know if
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think it makes for an interesting discussion, but I think we should put that on an agenda for a future meeting, because the issue at stake here is Tara's appointment. So point taken, but let's remember to add that to an agenda for a meeting very soon, okay? Do you understand what I'm saying?
yes.
Okay. So having said that, Jeanette, do you know Tara at all? Have you served with her at all? Or?
Yes, well, I mean, I watched the board and I knew her a little bit from talking to her.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to make this a little bit more than just a gratuitous exercise. So if anybody wants to ask, come up with a question to pose to Tara, now would be a good time to voice it so we can, otherwise it's, we're basically just dotting the I and crossing the T.
May I ask, I know in the bylaws, it says something about there are questions that the board asks, are those for an interview? Are we going to use those? Like, they call them, I think, special. Is that what it was called? For the interview and possible, the process.
Our board.
A
policy-
standard, using a standard format. So I was wondering what the standard format is.
I think what the standard format is referring to the fact that every candidate is asked the same set of questions. Not
That's
that
what we've
there
done in the
exists.
past. So I
good. Okay.
participated twice before in doing this, and majority of the board would meet as a committee and then do the interview, informally but publicly. And we would that, basically, a few questions, what is it you feel qualifies you to be on the board? What do you feel you have to offer to the board? Just very basic kind of, tell us a little about your experience and your interest in education. So we would just have those questions, and Nora would remember, because I remember she participated with me on it. And, we asked everyone the same questions. That's what it means by the standard, but just that you can't vary the questions by candidate. You have to have the same set of questions. In this scenario, we have one candidate, so there's no way of varying.
Okay, so maybe for those of us who don't know Tara, and I don't know her. I don't know if Tori knows her. Jeanette says that you've followed the board meetings, right? So you have a sense of. So I know, I'm sure that past.
So why don't we
experience-
ask?
Well, I was just, go
Why
ahead,
don't we
Nora.
take those three questions that Cheryl just offered and just make those Tara's questions
Mhm.
for this evening?
Okay.
Can you repeat those,
So,
please?
yeah, Melanie, write them down if
What-
you would.
Basically, what is your interest in education? What do you feel you have to offer to the board as a member of the board? And what do you think qualifies you to be on the board?
Mhm. And then maybe a unique perspective, because she would be the only parent of a child attending the school, correct?
Well,
Doesn't she have
don't
a-
make
Don't
that
know.
assumption. Don't make that assumption. Just what you
Okay.
can ask is, what unique perspective do you offer? Period.
Okay, good to know. Thanks, Nora.
Is everybody in agreement on that?
Melanie,
Anybody
can you
like to add
repeat
in?
those questions for everybody?
Yes, I have 4 questions. Tell us about your interest in the Board of Education. Number 2, tell us about your qualifications for this particular position on the board. What can you bring or offer to the Board of Education? And do you have any unique perspectives that you would like to share?
Any objection to using those 3 questions?
I think there were 4, but yes, they sound good.
Okay. And Cheryl, since you came up with that list, would you start with the first question when we begin the interview process?
Sure.
And Tori, would you ask the second?
Sure.
And Sandra, would you ask the third?
What was the third? I didn't write them down.
Okay, first one is your interest in the Board of Education. Second one is, what are your qualifications for the Board of Education? Third is, what can you bring to the board or offer the board? And number 4 is, what unique perspectives would you say that you have?
And Jeanette, would you ask the fourth question? Thank you. Okay, so now life gets a little complicated. We have to close this meeting, go into the Google Meet executive session meeting,
Oh geez, that's where I was having trouble. Okay.
conduct the interview with Tara in executive session, and then once that's complete, we will close that meeting, come back into public session and the Zoom meeting.
I disagree. We had to interview the candidates publicly last time when we did it. We had it in the conference room. No one showed up, but it was an open meeting. We didn't close off. I remember.
Cheryl,
The candidate could choose that option.
Yeah,
Right.
for bylaws, it specifically
Yes.
states the
It does.
board meet in executive session for some or all of this process, provided, however, that each candidate shall have the right to have his or her portion of the interview process held in open session and may elect to do so by advising the board of that fact at which the time of the interview.
All right, so we
She
go
has
into
that option.
executive, see if she wants to do it privately or publicly, and then come out as needed. Okay.
That's what we're doing.
And it
this is-
also goes on, just so you're clear, following the interview, the board may discuss the candidate or candidates, which may be in executive session also.
That I remember.
Okay.
Very good.
We're
Does
all in
that
agreement?
Have the second link, which is a Google Meet link. It says executive session link.
Hopefully I will be okay.
And the
Right.
last-
Keep everybody waiting.
So we're going to close this meeting. We will probably reopen it for purposes of discussing the budget cut. So at the risk of repeating ourselves, then I would entertain a motion to formally appoint Tara Sunday, having completed the process as outlined in board bylaws. Formalize her appointment. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to appoint Tara Sunday to complete
Second.
Doc Dutton's position.
Any discussion?
I second it
Okay, we got seconds. Coming up.
for the second time.
All in favor?
I
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Unanimous. Welcome, Tara. Thank you.
I just want to make sure I got the motion correctly. Doug, did you make the motion and Tori, you seconded it?
Nora made the motion.
Nora did. Okay, thank you.
that Tara Sunday was going to complete Dr. Dutton's term.
Thank you.
Okay, so we can now move on to the second item on the agenda this evening, which is the discussion of the $200,000 budget cut made by the Board of Selectmen to our requested budget. And I just want to make a couple comments to try to clarify the timeline, because this has been a point of contention and an issue with us. I'll begin by saying that on March 28th, shall I read this date correctly? Melanie made a budget presentation to the town in the Pearson cafeteria. And at that presentation, she presented a budget request of 3.01%. Subsequently, and I'm skipping a few things, but I'm trying to get to the main thing. There was a meeting on April 18th of the Board of Selectmen. And we've all heard, or most of us have heard, how confusing some of the dialogue was. But in a short meeting that Melanie and I had with Josh this afternoon, when we caught him at the end of the meeting we had earlier, his succinct explanation was simply that the town had qualified for a community challenge grant, which required the town to come up with $200,000 of matching funds in order to receive the grant to do sidewalk improvements. And the motion was made and approved by the selectmen to reduce the Board of Education budget by $200,000 to find that money for the challenge grant. Melanie, does that match your recollection of what you said this afternoon?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So without debating, and we could do this all night, where the money came from, where it went, that seems to be the most succinct explanation of how our budget came to be cut on the 18th of April at the Board of Selectmen's meeting,
When did they have that meeting, Doug?
April 18th.
For the, no, I know, but the town committee and the grant, was it, because I watched that part of the meeting and I have a couple of questions actually, and a couple of comments about this.
I don't know. I can't answer. I don't know anything about the community challenge grant other than what Josh just told us this afternoon.
So we don't have a date of when he made the decision to take $200,000 to,
That was
for the
made at the
town.
Board of Selectmen's meeting on April 18th. It was moved by one of the selectmen to make that cut from the Board of Education budget to find the $200,000 for the community challenge grant.
So that was earlier in the meeting.
Yeah.
Because I saw Mr. Sedlak ask the question about the 200,000. So I'm just wondering when they made that decision to take.
Again, it was in my view, a very confusing meeting, and the transfers and line item changes were hard to follow.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to spare us all of that misery because it does get very complicated. But again, what Josh told Melanie and I this afternoon, as we caught him going out the door, that was why that motion was made. And it was approved by the Board of Selectmen. So that leaves us with a conundrum. We have to find $200,000. And I will tell you that Melanie and I met with Holly and Greg this afternoon. The Gilbert School has a meeting scheduled for next week, and this will be on the agenda to discuss the budget cut. They are both keenly aware that this is hopefully going to be a shared sacrifice.
Yep.
And that we all have to work together to come up with the money with the least amount of pain. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Melanie for anything she'd like to add at this point.
So procedurally, because we hold the budget, we are responsible for this $200,000 cut in whole right now. Nancy and I cannot load a budget that is not an approved amount. So our jobs tonight, Nancy and I have worked to nickel and dime the budget, and we've had to make some tough decisions around some cuts. So what will happen going forward is I'm going to propose to you where Nancy and I are suggesting getting an additional $200,000 out of our budget through cut. Then what I'm going to do is inform you that if in fact down the road Gilbert does contribute to the $200,000, we would have the ability to reinstate some of what we are taking out of the budget based upon what we are doing. But right now, budgetarily, we must make a cut tonight of $200,000.
Okay, I have a couple of comments to make about this, and I'm sorry, I don't
As
know
do
who
I.
just wanted to
I just
speak.
want to
Okay,
back.
okay, so my
Yeah.
first comment is, and I expressed this to Doug when I spoke to him on the phone, is I'm not happy that we found out about this cut on a Facebook post in the Waterbury Republican. We, in good faith, right, you came up with a budget, and it was voted on, a number that we assumed was the correct number. My question is, not missing the 200,000, my question is, was that the money that you were talking about, and did he take it out? When you were talking about that within the budget, the town committee, the Board of Selectmen have a fund of money that they're supposed to give back to us when we ask for it. Is that the fund? Is that the line? Okay.
No, that is the non-lapsing fund that you're speaking of, and that's
Okay.
the fund that the Board of Education owns.
Okay. So maybe I'm not being clear, but where did he take that money out of? I mean, he's just arbitrarily saying you need to cut your budget by $200,000.
No, I believe off the top of my head, the $200,000 cut was made on the general budget side of things. There's two places where the Board of Selectmen can initiate cuts on the Board of Ed. One would be under the appropriated budget, the general budget, and the second would be in the line called Town Support for Education.
Okay. So we just this town voted through a very large amount of money.
It's not?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Sorry.
I just said that this town just voted through a bond with a large amount of money. So you're saying that he absolutely needs to take the 200,000? I mean, because I read his word salad in the Waterbury Republican or Republican American
Well,
as
you
to
have,
explaining. So
it's
yeah,
not-
go ahead.
our budget is X amount. What was approved by the town is $200,000 less than what we requested. How we distribute that in line items is up to the board. All the town does, and the vote does, is give us a dollar amount. And so,
So they changed the amount, Cheryl, when they,
That's
from
what
when
happened.
Melanie presented that, they
Yes,
went
they-
ahead and changed and then voted on it. That's what you're saying.
They reduced 200,000 from what our ask was. And for some reason, we were not aware of that.
What had happened was I
Yeah.
was not aware of the $200,000 cut. I forget what day I sent it on, but it was 5 days before the budget presentation that the town would receive. I sent the PowerPoint with all the numbers that we were going to be presenting that night to the town manager.
That was
Five-
March 21st.
And then didn't receive any feedback, anything was wrong or anything. So that was the information that we had presented, because in the past, we were usually notified if there were any budgetary cuts to the Board of Education,
One would think.
receive any notification this past time.
Okay,
So,
can I
Go ahead.
add a quick couple questions here?
Yes,
I'm gonna
please, somebody else jump
share.
in.
Okay, only the host can share. I'm looking at the budget that was posted on our town website that we all voted on, and we were all present on, which was in April 18th. And the
April
actual
18th was
line
the-
item for the
April
budget
18th was
presented to the
to the
town,
town, right?
and it was $539,000. I'm just gonna round $539,000, right? So the Gilbert ask, because
Nora,
we had contributed already.
what are you talking about? I don't know where you're getting 539. Can you point to the specific line, please?
Can I share? Am I able to share my screen?
She can let you share.
Yeah, right now it says only the host can share.
You can change the share settings to anyone can share.
All set, Nora's host.
Alrighty,
Yeah.
screen.
I
All
hope
right,
it
give me a
doesn't drop.
minute, everybody. Start broadcast. Okay, screen broadcast. Start broadcast. I'm gonna try to hit this button that says start broadcast. Or maybe screen. No, start broadcast.
I see an ocean.
Everything on your screen.
Oh, there.
Okay, you see an ocean. That's my name. Okay, cancel. Okay, so I guess I'm sharing. So I'm gonna go here. Can you all see this?
No, well, there we go.
18-page
Yeah.
PDF from the town.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all see that with yellow and so forth?
Very small.
Mhm.
Okay, this is what we all voted on that was presented by the town manager. You notice the date down here says April. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go down to the very bottom where it says education. And I'm gonna show you that the town had to authorize, you see it says Board of Education expenditure. The town had authorized $539,000. Did everybody see that? For 22-23, right below the yellow line, yes?
I mean, an increase of 539,000.
Well, I suppose, whatever you want to call it, but that's what they were going to spend. And you see the 128 is what we had taken out of our 2% account, which is our non-lapsing account, to help our contribution, if you will, so that the town doesn't get hit so hard. Right? We all on the same page? Or maybe we're
Yeah.
not. Gilbert increase was 610.
Yep.
Am I right?
Right.
So why am I registering 610 minus 539? Why isn't that the problem? Why is two? Because when I play my math, when I minus the two
so-
of them, I get 72,000.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know, but
That
so I
matters a
think
lot.
that was taken out, the 200,000 was taken out, the support for town, right? So how much, Melanie, did you expect to receive as far as town support? And then on that Nora just shared, what did it say on there? So as far as
$601,000 and
What-
the $101,000 this year. So there was no increase in the town's support for education. The non-lapsing fund is separate and distinct from the
Right.
town's support for education.
right, so the support for education, we were planning on getting $600,000 from the town, is that correct?
601,000.
601, okay. And then what does that line item say on the report that that Nora just shared?
It says
$538.
$601,000. The page previous to the one Nora's showing shows the $601,000.
From the
Town
town's
support.
budget? The town's budget says that.
Yes.
And that was April 18th?
Cut on the appropriated side.
Right.
So our budget, the $200,000 got cut on the appropriated line.
When we went to the town with the $610,000 increase, that was taking into account the $128,000 that we were using from the non-lapsing fund to be able to
Right.
balance K through 6 side of the budget. So the
Right.
$610,000 was driven exclusively by the Gilbert tuition increase. We kept our budget at a zero.
At a zero.
Right.
Right.
I mean, I think there's really no point to try and figure out, to go through where the cut came with either side. It doesn't matter. We do know that we kept our budget flat and Gilbert increased their ask significantly. It was a high percentage increase. And this was part of the discussions that we have had with Gilbert previously about whether they would do, remember there was discussion of proportionate, cut, if we didn't get the full budget. Well, this has come to fruition. We're not getting our full ask. We're $200,000 shy. We are already bare bones. It seems to me only fair that Gilbert would take 200,000 out of theirs. I understand that for purposes of our obligation as the people that manage the budget, that we have to propose and reduce our budget right now at this meeting. I get that. Okay, so that's what we need to focus on. But I think
Well, I think that,
strongly that Gilbert's the one who should be taking this $200,000 cut, because when they had 62 classes last year with 10 or fewer students in, which is double what they had in 2018 and 2020, that's outrageous. And they clearly could have done a much better job at their zero funding determination. So they should be looking at these cuts. We have cut and maintained as bare bones a budget as we can, even when we've lost funding. And they just keep increasing their ask. And now our ask was reduced by 200,000 for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. We have to deal with the situation we're dealing with, and we're wasting time, arguing and figuring out where it came from. We know what the ask was. We know what we have now, and we know why there was an increase in the ask to the town. It was because of Gilbert and solely because of Gilbert's ask. That's it. So I think we should move on and let Melanie, explain what are the proposed reductions that we have to take if we have to accommodate this $200,000.
hold on, I just want to ask a couple questions, please, if I could before that. And because I do think it's important that we go over all this due to the history of this town, and money's been taken off the top and in the side many a times because no one did their due diligence in seeing where the monies went, who took the money and when, and it is beholden on us that we really need to go through this line by line. And I agree, we need to. We don't know. And we voted in May, correct? The budget meeting was in May. The town voted in May. The people took off their Memorial Day weekend to come in and vote on the budget in May. Is that correct? On Memorial Day weekend, right?
Yep.
So that's in May. And you're telling me that after that, the selectmen made the decision to change our budget after
No,
the vote?
April
After
18th.
the vote?
They made
No.
that choice on April 18th for it.
Right. And nobody was notified. So
No one was aware, but yet we all.
When was the
sat in
town
that same
vote though?
meeting,
When was
y'all.
our vote at Pearson Middle School?
Was on Memorial Day weekend, and what we voted on was for $200,000 less than our ask, and we didn't notice it. No one
Yeah.
noticed on this board, nor the superintendent, nor anyone. So the town voted for the $200,000.
and I get what you're
No,
saying,
but
Cheryl.
when was this $200,000 decrease from our budget?
And
On
April-
April 18th.
April 18th, when the town manager presented the budget to the community, who then voted to send it to referendum. And it was at the 18th that I sat in the audience, but it was at the 18th when the town manager presented the number.
Is that
And
at Gilbert? Was that the Gilbert? meeting?
miscommunication, lack of communication.
No.
No, No, that's a town meeting.
Right,
That
the
is the
April
bill that the
18th
town is
town
agreeing to
meeting.
pay. Right, it's the final enchilada, and then the town goes to vote later. So what you're worried about is the April 18th numbers, which is what you
Correct.
vote on in your
Right.
holiday weekend.
And
Okay,
That was the,
so for whatever reason, there was miscommunication, lack of whatever you want to call it, lack of communication. The town manager went ahead and presented the, what it was at 430, what did I say? 539? When the ask was
Yeah.
610?
Yes.
So no one noticed that.
Oh, Nora,
But I also,
Nora,
no,
don't,
because
128,000 that we considered in that 539, that is contribute, those are two separate lines. So the one that you're focused on is the reduction of the 410 line. It was originally requested at 610, but was changed to an increase of 410. That don't
410.
include the 128,000, because that's money that the Board of Education has contributed.
Mm-mm.
I thought that our vote as a town referendum was on Memorial Day weekend, which is in May. Am
It
I wrong?
was,
Yes,
right, but they changed the number, Tor,
before that.
without,
after-
no,
Before then.
before,
So
without
what was the
Before.
date
notifying.
in which they had changed the number is what I'm looking for here.
April
April
18th.
18th at the Board of Selectmen meeting, when they reduced our budget by $200,000 and then voted on it and sent it to referendum. Then we had the referendum on Memorial Day weekend.
Right,
with
and
that
so we all,
reduced
we all
Thank you.
voted on
No,
a number.
slow down,
We all-
slow down. Let him finish.
And
Tori,
then
what
I
other
don't,
questions?
was anybody there at the Pearson school meeting? There was a
I
meeting,
was.
I was there.
all right. There was a question asked at the Pearson school meeting. I don't remember by who, but they were asking that in regards to the Hinsdale bond, whether a portion of the infrastructure bond was applied to this our new bond for Hinsdale, right? And I just vaguely remember this, but I'm wondering, was the $200,000 shortfall used to make sure that the infrastructure plan that they had been pushing this whole time to make that more palatable? So they decreased us to try to make it more palatable that everyone accepts this infrastructure plan without being forthcoming to us.
No,
That's what
the rationale was expressed at the meeting that they were putting in for a different matter. It's nothing to do with Hinsdale, and it's nothing to do with the infrastructure plan. And again, whatever their motivation was, okay, fact is they voted on it in the normal course of events. It was done in a confusing way. We weren't advised ahead of time. When the town then voted on those figures, we all thought that it was the same as our ask, and it wasn't. But so now we're dealing with, this is where we're at. Going back and trying to figure out what their motivation is not productive at this point. We're with this figure. We can't do anything
I
about it.
disagree. I disagree on that. I think we need to have Josh in front of the board before we make a decision on what to cut.
We have to do the cut. We were obligated to have a balanced budget, and right now we don't.
Right.
I
Right.
can't do
That's
any
state law.
the district without a budget that is accurate.
Right. This is state law. You have to have a balanced budget by state
So
law.
we have to do this now that we are aware of this. We have to take care of it, and we have to cut the budget. And our hope, and we only have the control to cut our portion. So we're going to have to do the cuts, and then hope they can get reinstated if Gilbert does the right thing.
Right.
So I just want to say something so Josh has said, I know that you guys have had 2 meetings now with him. Is that true?
One meeting and then a sort of a quick aside in his office this afternoon.
Okay, and he's adamant, I guess because they cannot reinstate that 200,000?
We
He-
can ask for supplemental if necessary.
That will
Okay.
not be reinstated, but he has expressed sympathy for our plight, and he's working to come up with additional funds to help us.
And what
You guys,
what does that number look like, Doug?
I can't
All right,
speak
you
to it
guys,
now, but I'm optimistic.
you have to
I-
understand a couple of things. The town support to education is additional funds to our education system. that's
Right.
above and beyond the MBR, okay?
What does
That's
that mean,
one.
Nora?
Two, that means that the minimum balanced budget requirement, MBR stands for minimum budget requirement. That is that the lowest you can go to adequately educate kids is less than what the town is giving to us right now by $410. Then we put aside the additional 2%, which is sort of like the 2% that you can carry from year to year, which allows us to fix the roof and take care of emergencies that come our way. In addition, does not only the town give us 410,000 above the NBR, notice that the town is contributing to us. It also contributes to the bond that we did for Hinsdale. So it's not like the town has been reaping away and taking away monies from us. What I would argue is that Gilbert takes part of this, I would say arguably all of this, because every bit increase was them. 60 something thousand dollars was an SRO that they're not even going to run anyway. Maybe they moved their monies to pay for a new principal, but they, as was discussed, have a huge number of classes with 10 or fewer kids. And I know they need to offer courses to graduate kids on time, but I would ask that Gilbert look at its ship and find ways to tighten its belt for $200,000, because our end of it has been doing a pretty good job holding its end of the deal.
And I agree with you, Nora. And my quarrel isn't with that it was done. My is how it was done. This was obviously very, in the dead of night. Didn't tell anybody. That's the problem here. The problem isn't that he did take the $200,000 away. The problem is that he did it without telling us. Then we voted on it. That's the issue here. The issue isn't the 200,000. Like you said, you've made cuts before every year, right? You said you've all dealt with this. The problem is how they did it. The selectmen and Josh were dishonest.
I
Okay,
wouldn't
guys,
say dishonest. No, I wouldn't go that
I
far.
would say dishonest 100%. And in this town,
I would say
Guys,
lack of
can you stop? I've been
lack of
listening to
communication.
everybody's opinions for the last 45 minutes. These are opinions. These are things we can't change. Nora, we know you feel that Gilbert needs to share some of this. And I definitely agree with you, Tori, that something weird happened. And as I think somebody said before, Sandra, word salad, like it was really questionable. However, the fact is we are right now having to agree on a budget, pass a budget or changes or whatever it is that Mel needs us to do so the school can function tomorrow. We have to comply with state law. We have to get that done. That does not mean anybody's opinions are invalid, but we need to get this done.
Thank you, Chris.
And
like
I get
that.
what
It's a
what you're
good
saying.
summation, and I really would like to stop any of the discussions of opinions about why it happened or where it happened. And I think we need to address the matter at hand, which is tonight, this board has to approve a budget that reflects a $200,000 reduction over the budget that we originally.
Okay, but I want to know what can you possibly cut for
This is what Melanie is
$200,000?
going to tell us if we can give her a chance.
Okay, go for it, Melanie.
Nora, could you please make me the host so that I can share my screen?
Yes, but how do I do that?
We'll go over
Share
on the
screen,
right-hand
drop
side.
box, cancel. Right, so I'm where it says more, right?
Yep.
Chat meeting settings, whiteboards, disconnect audio. Don't want to do that. Whiteboards, that's new. Chat recording security.
Click on my name where it says more, like hover over my name.
All right, hold on a second.
More
My
next to my name.
apologies. No, let me do it another way. Security recording chat. Huh. How do I get you there? This would be problematic.
Nora, at the bottom of your screen, there's
Yeah,
a thing called participants.
I see more. Okay, there it is. My bad. Okay, Melanie Brady Shanley. Down here. Nope. Next to your name. Make host. Right. Okie dokie, you have it back.
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna share my screen. Please let me know if you can see that.
Yes.
Okay. So Nancy and I went through the budget today, literally line by line, and that's what you're seeing right now. So I'm going to start with our first cuts or reductions, and then I want you to be advised that, you know, should we get some funds back, we will reinstate. So we have some unfilled positions in the district, and that's where I'm focusing my cuts on right now. We have $13,000 out of general budget for one kindergarten assistant. So we're gonna suggest making a reduction there. We have 2 paraprofessionals at the Hinsdale School that have not been hired yet. We have 2 openings. We're gonna suggest leaving those 2 open at this moment in the amount of $41,000. We have 1 paraprofessional opening at the Pearson School right now, and that's at $19,000. We have 1 paraprofessional at the Gilbert School that is open. We are suggesting not replacing that at this moment. I am reducing a suggestion of Hinsdale sub coverage line by $5,000. At Pearson, I'm suggesting $5,000 substitute coverage reduction and also the reduction of the building substitute position. Continuing on, we are suggesting a $10,000 cut to the Social Security line there. A $1,000 or $10,000 cut to the legal fees, another $5,000 cut to the legal fees for my office, $10,000 for Seamus's office because he uses most of our legal services. We are also suggesting, sorry, here's where a lot of the nickeling and diming came in. We removed all travel expenses, which would have been around $6,000. We reduced children's field experiences by $2,000 at Hinsdale, reduced it by $4,000 at Pearson. We reduced instructional supplies by $5,000, reduced instructional supplies at Pearson by $12,000, reduced special services supplies by $1,500, and we reduced the nursing supplies by $500 in both buildings, technology supplies by $500, administrative supplies by $500, reduced the computer line for purchase of any new hardware computers by $15,000. And I believe that to be it. So what that does is we needed $200,000 to mitigate. We have a balance of 0 to mitigate to 0, and we made $200,000 worth of cuts. Literally, I have nothing left in the budget.
I would imagine.
Melanie,
What
was that
Oh.
first line, the kindergarten assistant, was that someone you already hired?
So
No.
no, that is an opening.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Doug, you might want to play referee, Doug.
How's that?
So we had no layoffs.
Correct. I
That's
did
good.
not, we focused
Melanie,
not filling positions.
That's
Hey,
good, thank you.
Melanie, there's a question from Chris about the Social Security. How can you cut that? You'd have to be cutting your gross payroll. So is that reflective of the payroll reductions?
Yes, because we cut like the building subs, the substitutes, and the paraprofessionals, that will also have a benefit decrease on the Social Security side. And I'm
Right.
seeing Nancy saying that I'm explaining this correct.
And would that also apply to Medicaid, Medicare, or?
Well, it depends if they're taking insurance. We're making assumptions that these positions would have not taken insurance because their insurance rates are so high on those particular positions.
And just for the sake of argument, how much money do we have in our non-lapsing fund?
1 second, I'm going to refer that to Nancy.
Okay. So Doug, that is, let me review that with you all, because we have remember we have a Pearson HVAC project.
Right.
So we had earmarked $294,742. to
Okay.
that project. We took 12700 to cover the 128,000. I took 127,000 out of the appropriated budget by taking out all of the facilities expense. If you look at that line, it has no budget in it for this year. That is all coming out of the non-lapsing fund. And those are the dollars that you said to go ahead and take out of the non-lapsing fund when we arrived at our 3.1% budget. And the moving target at this point is the moving expense that we had to move from the schools to Hinsdale back to Pearson and such, being in the current year budget. So right now we are just above water in the 2022 budget. We've got a balance of $1,228, but we still have outstanding encumbrances, some of which I hope will fizzle. Others, of course, which will be paying out with the run out as we finish out 2022. So it's a long way around to saying if we need to use 45,000 for the moving costs, and we have the money that we've set aside for the Pearson HVAC, it will leave us with a non-lapsing fund balance of $51,571.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. Thank you. That's so far.
That's for the
So Nora had a question regarding the Paris and the
that's for
IEPs.
the 22-3.
You were breaking up.
Could I ask Nora's question to you, Mel? Did you see it, the text?
No, because I can't, because I'm sharing my screen right
Okay,
now.
she asked if by not having powers, we're going to have IEP issues.
So this is always a catch-22. So right now we have a lot of programs going on in our district, and we do necessitate paraprofessionals. And, you know, what could happen is that we can't service students within district, and then we're looking at out-of-district costs. So that would be the first place that, should we receive any further funds, that I would suggest that we look at reinstating funds to.
Did that answer your question, Nora?
Yes, but it's not ideal. I had another question, but I'll put it in the chat. Oh,
I can't see the chat, Nora.
Oh, all right. I had these from kids for these, where is it? I'm trying to, you control the scrolling, about student activity.
The field
I don't remember the terminology here.
There's field
Yeah, field
experiences and
experiences.
travel expenses. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
field experience. My concern about all that is as we enter back from COVID and social emotional issues the kids may have, field experiences are critical for our kids' mental health. And I think cutting that is going to be problematic. I understand that these are areas that are above and beyond the curriculum per se, but it is a part of the curriculum.
So
I whole hesitation there.
My suggested remedy, Nora, for that is to talk to our PTO. They're always really good about helping us out with field experiences or the transportation thereof. And then we also can begin to start to do some fundraising in this area. You know, in the past, grant funds have really largely supplanted those funds. So we can work on doing some fundraising to ensure that students don't lose access to those valuable experiences.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to ask a question if possible.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. The class where you're taking out the assistant, the kindergarten assistant, how many kids are in that class, Melanie?
So that's actually a good, yesterday we decreased the budget, the kindergarten program, by 1 teacher. So we were able to take that into account. So we will be 3 kindergarten assistants for 4 classrooms, which is absolutely fine.
And how many children will be in each class?
About 18 to 20 students per classroom.
Okay. And what is a building substitute?
So because there's such a substitute shortage, we hire a person that works on a daily basis to cover anybody who calls out for the day. So because our staffing agencies don't have enough substitutes to go around to support people who call out, we have a built-in person that can help by covering.
Right, okay. And get my last question is, we had voted, what was it, C500 for CABE for the board? Does that come out of the school budget?
Yes, and that comes out of general
For
budget.
our,
Yep, and if you look down here at the bottom, 19,500, those are dues and fees that we pay to different organizations, where the fees would be.
is that something that we could add back in? Is that a necessity, Doug? What do you think?
I think it's entirely on the table. We would have to decide what value it has to the board, how much we utilize their services. I think there's a number of us who utilize it more, and the rest of you probably don't know CABE exists. So
Right.
I think it's worth a discussion at some point.
Bear in mind that CABE does provide for us our policies in batches that has helped us in the last, 5 years to move on with updating all of our policies, and that amount of monies and services and support has been invaluable for us moving forward. I think it'll continue to be invaluable.
And I also want to tell you, if I have to go to our attorneys for policies on a case-by-case basis, it will be a lot more expensive than $6,500.
Okay, thank you.
So Melanie, the CABE policy service, is that in addition to the base fee? Is it like 5,000 to join and 1,500 for the policy service, or how does that work?
Yes, I don't know that those are the exact numbers, but that's the realm. It's like a base price to be a CABE member, and then you pay a services fee for the policies and the website and that kind of stuff.
So
And
Sandra, I guess I'd stand corrected. I would take back my comments. I think that is a valuable service, and we wouldn't have a policy committee, and then what would we do, right? Sure. Go there? No. So yeah, I would say that's a valuable service.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Melanie on the cuts that she's proposed?
I have no questions about the cuts, but I do know that Gilbert is on this meeting and they're listening to us grapple with and struggle with trying to find ways in which that put our community in jeopardy of not meeting IEP needs and social emotional needs, that I think that Gilbert needs to be absolutely at the table to meet us here on this, especially in light of how their superintendent have first come to their table with reductions of, for example, a social studies teacher, and that was brought back into the budget. I think the superintendent at the time found ways to find cut corners, ways in which they probably can help us moving forward. They're not using an SRO, and I think that's important. And I know that this is a record, but I'm telling you guys, I've been on this board for 6 years, and we're serving as minority representations on the Gilbert board. And so we are supplicants to their budget, because they do not have to cut anything come July 1. They could just hand us that bill at 610, and here we are struggling with this problem. A year after year after year.
Any other comments? If not, we would need a motion to approve the budget as Melanie presented it to us this evening for purposes of making that a budget legal. Is there a motion to approve those cuts? Chris is making that motion, understanding that this is something we're obligated to do and that we can restore some of these cuts. There's one motion. Is there a second to that motion? Okay, so if we're not going to, I will second it so we can move it to a vote.
Doug, who made the motion? I'm sorry.
Chris made
I
the
can't hear
motion.
anything. No.
My Wi-Fi just froze up. I think we're having difficulties a little bit.
No, Doug, it was very hard to hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Chris has made a motion to approve the budget as presented by Melanie, reflecting the $200,000 in cuts. And I have seconded that motion. Is there any further discussion?
I think we've all said our piece.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, all in favor of approving that budget as presented in the motion?
2,
Me,
3, 4,
yes.
5, 6.
Yes.
Doug, I have 6 approves.
I abstain.
1. Anyone else abstaining with Cheryl?
I abstain.
I'm going to
Nora?
abstain also. Sandra.
And Nora abstaining. Is anybody against that motion?
Do we have Tara? She should be, I don't see her.
Has she been sworn in yet?
Oh, that's right. She wasn't
Can I
sworn.
just ask a hypothetical question? If we
Wasn't sworn
don't,
in.
if we don't approve it, like what happens?
We have to
That's a good
continue to
question,
discuss
Renata.
it and make it. The bottom line is you're going to have to approve $200,000 in some way tonight.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I would have to discuss it until it gets approved.
So then Nancy's gonna have to go back to that budget and look at it again, right?
And redo it.
I'm
Ugh.
gonna approve.
So I have a 5-3-0 vote right now. Is that accurate?
Who are the abstentions? Sandra's abstaining,
Myself,
Nora's
Sandra and
abstaining.
Cheryl and Nora.
That still passes.
Okay.
so it's 5-0-3. Abstentions come after.
Mhm.
So who are we missing on our board?
5 yes, 0 no, 3 abstention.
So
So
who's
that's
not
8.
voting? We have 9 of us here this evening, right?
Tara is not
Tara
sworn
can't vote.
as she
Eric
cannot vote.
cannot vote.
I'm sorry, what?
Tara has not been sworn in yet.
She hasn't been sworn in yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you
Right.
for
It's okay.
That's why it's
Okay.
8, not 9.
that. All right, so it's 5-0.
I do want to say that with my abstention, I'm sure Gilbert, I am hoping, and I am sure Gilbert will step up to the plate. I am not, well, Cheryl, stop. I am not happy with the way that the town manager and however else it was, and I know we've said this, but I'm just restating how it was done. This is why following procedure and protocol in this town is really important. And I feel we need to go back in there. They passed this budget. We had another huge referendum on all kinds of money, to take it away from the educational expenses of the kids. And as you can see, having to take away, I'm in agreement with Nora. I mean, field trips and education, it's ridiculous. So not happy about that and not
So-
happy with how we were notified.
Let me give you one
I
more
just
piece of
want for the-
additional, can you wait one moment? I'd like to give you one
Yeah.
more piece of additional information. There was a meeting scheduled between Steve Sedlak, Todd Oslowitz, Josh, Greg, Holly, myself, and Melanie, which could not take place because somebody couldn't make it. So it's been rescheduled for next week. And Holly and Greg, since you're listening, what happened was this afternoon, we bumped into Todd and Josh as we were leaving the fishbowl and had a brief conversation. And Melanie, do you have your notes on the agenda that we all agreed upon for a future meeting? And I'm telling you this because I want to make sure everybody feels they have an opportunity to weigh in on this, but we do have an agenda set for the
How about
meeting.
just opening the invitation, Doug? Can we come to the meeting?
I think you have to put some faith in us at this stage to convey the wishes of the board, because it's already getting to be a very difficult conversation. And I want you to know that this is your opportunity to weigh in.
So
this
no.
No, I mean, this is kind of the way boards are structured. You assign leadership to people, you give them responsibilities and authorities, and you trust in their judgment. And if the whole board is going to do everything, then it becomes very cumbersome. So
Doug,
yeah,
I have the 4 items that were discussed.
okay,
Review of the budget process. Number 2, cost saving opportunities for the Board of Education in partnership with the Board of Selectmen / town. Number 2 or 3, regulations for notification of budgetary adjustments during the budget timeline process. And number 4, communication improvements.
Well, I
Number
think
5, transparency.
at the end of the day, we all know that they made this and didn't tell anybody for a reason, right? That's apparent.
It happened in open session at the Board of Selectmen. It just wasn't caught and understood.
Correct. And that's
They-
why transparency is
They
key.
didn't.
They should have
didn't-
let us know.
They didn't inform one
No, they-
person at the Board of Education,
They should
nor
have
the
communicated-
superintendent.
Well, but it's public record, so they're informed in that manner. We all have the right to be, have
But
viewed
after
it,
the fact,
dictated. No, but the discussion happened at the Board of Selectmen, public meeting. This wasn't a
Correct.
backdoor situation. This was done in open and we missed it. It was, as I understand, was extremely confusing how it was presented. And yes,
Right.
so I don't think it's transparency, it's communication is the primary issue. It was very transparent. We still just missed it because it was confusing.
And
But
I think the agenda that Melanie outlined addresses those issues.
I agree.
I would concur that communication is the most important one. If you remember now, we've had a new town manager, not to throw anybody under the bus, but communication has changed because personalities have evolved. And I think that's very important on Melanie and on Greg and on everybody, the town manager as well, to get in there and have that line of communication so this never happens again.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other comment? If
It's just
not,
disappointing. It's disappointing I mean, we're in a tough place. There's nothing we could do. And it's upsetting. And I think that Gilbert should look into their budget. We came in with a zero-based budget. We did the work. And it's time for them to do the work and help us because it's all of our kids.
Right.
I agree.
I would also like at that meeting, Melanie and Doug, if you could bring all the line items that we had cut, just to inform Josh and make him aware that we had cut, $500 from our nurses fund and so forth. All these important things that are, could mean the children's safety, for heaven's sakes. And that's what he cut when he didn't tell us.
we can convey the budget, the modified budget to him, certainly. We'll point those
Thank you.
cuts out.
Doug, I'd like to share one last thought and make sure it's clear to everybody that was here. When the budget was first proposed by Mel, she had a 2% for Gilbert increase, like just tucked in there because we didn't have a final number from Gilbert yet.
Right.
So the 610 or whatever that was in addition was the final number from Gilbert. In other words, it wasn't in that first number. So I don't want people to think that, oh, there was an addition of something. It was, Mel had a placeholder number, but the final number that was approved by the Gilbert board ended up being different than her placeholder.
Right.
So I just want to clarify that's where it is not so much that somebody added on this or that or whatever, because some of our numbers changed too. Between the proposed time, there was, some addition to, I think somebody had to go out of district and some other changes. So those do happen from the proposed to, what ends up going in. So there's always a little bit of fluctuation, but it wasn't so much an addition as in the placeholder number was different than the final number. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you for that, Chris. That's
Did
an
we
important
lose,
point.
we lose Sandra? Let's see her on in the. Just for the record, she's not on that. That should be documented that she's not on at this point.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that, sure.
All right, all in favor? Thank you all for your time this evening. I appreciate it.
Doug, do we have to vote again on Tara?
We had,
did.
no, we voted. We just need to swear her in.
No, we just did vote.
Okay.
Cool.
All right, just making sure. I don't want to miss anything.
Yeah,
When's the swearing?
I'm not feeling well right now, so I will go in when I'm feeling a little bit better. as soon as I can, though.
To the town clerk. Okay.
Thank you,
Yep,
Tara.
yep.
Welcome.
I think I just need to buzz down there. It's pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.